Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Thursday night means it's Supermac and Gibbo who join me, and we will be talking and looking back on the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And Malcolm, we'll go straight into football because I have a feeling this show may get bogged down in takeover talk after yesterday's developments. But just one of your views on last weekend's game. Fought the back. There was injuries. Obviously, we weren't sure whether Willock was going to make it. We were all thinking he could be out for a couple of weeks. Lo and behold, the foot was okay, and he was in the starting lineup. And Newcastle actually gave a good account of themselves. And if they could learn to finish their dinner, then potentially they could have won that game, and that could have been the first 3 points. As it was, they didn't. It ended up being a 1-1 draw, and as it happens, the way the game panned out, they were lucky to come away with a point because Watford nearly sneaked it at the end. And if it hadn't been for our old friend VAR, they may well have done. But what did you make of the game last week, Mark?
Well, yes, Watford might have nicked it, but heavens above, Newcastle United should have had it well and truly sewn up long before then. The number of chances that were missed, and what was sorely missed was somebody who can score goals. And there's Newcastle United playing against Watford, who aren't the best side going. Come on, let's be fair. And Newcastle are actually taking them on without a forward. I just find it absolutely balmy when they've got a goal scorer on the bench, and Steve Bruce will not play him, and so that. You can see the strain in the midfield faces and with those in front of them who are in forward positions but don't know how to play it, and it's also frustrating for everybody. Chances were made, chances were missed. It just needed someone just to get the ball down and give it a good whack on target, and there weren't the people to do that. And I can't help but feel that Steve Bruce has something against Dwight Gayle, because it was so glaring in its demand for his presence out on the field. So glaring, and yet he just didn't do anything about it. Even when you could see that Newcastle, they were toiling, they were at risk of even losing the game that they should have had sewn up, simply because nobody was sticking the ball in the net. And I have to say that I'm getting to the point where I really don't understand what is going on in Steve Bruce's head for him not to play when you've got your recent signing out injured. So there's a number 9 who's just been put on a 3-year contract and still he can't get a game when everybody else is missing, and it was pathetic missing at times, and Steve Bruce doesn't let the fella's backside rise off the bench.
Yeah, it's strange, John, isn't it? I mean, Malcolm's right. I mean, we've got these T-shirts these days, guys. J7, it's the new name for Joelinton. J7. We're going to try that now, lads. Hopefully that'll give him a bit of a boost. Thanks to John from Q-Tech for sorting that T-shirt out for me tonight. But Dwight Gayle, John. Dwight Gayle not getting on. But yeah, we should have had 3 points last week. Malcolm's right, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Dwight Gayle not starting has been a bug of mine for a while, just because on the law of averages, it defies keeping the guy. I mean, on the positive side, as you said, Steve, and I'm clutching at straws on the positive side because we've been so negative for so long, because Newcastle United have been so negative for so long. You're wanting to look at the other side of the coin. And they did play ever so well against what was a very, very poor Watford side, without a shadow of doubt. And they made chance after chance after chance. But, there was an old sage said to me, donkeys years ago when I was a young whippersnapper trying to find my way in this game. He said, Gibbo, missing chances is as bad a play as letting them in at the back or not creating them in midfield. Missing chances all the time in a whole game is bad play. You miss a chance, yes, but you score the next one or the one after that. But if you keep missing it, it's poor play. It's not unlucky. I mean, for example, when Newcastle broke away, remember when there was a bad back pass and the keeper was stranded, and first of all it went to San Maximan, and then he didn't know quite what to do and he didn't get off a shot, and then he tried to square it to Longstaff and it went over the bar. It was actually behind Longstaff and he was falling. And then the horrendous attempt to dink the ball. You say that we almost lost in the last minute but for Vaughan, and that's absolutely true. But we should have won it in the minute after that as well with Mr. Murphy, who tried to dink the goalkeeper, which is the old trick of Beardsley, who scored a pile of goals just by dinking the keeper as he went down. But he tried to be far too clever, and it was embarrassing. You know, when you get those penalties and somebody tries to dink the keeper on a penalty, and it looks horrendous because the guy can have a fag and still catch the ball in 10 minutes later. You know, it was one of those, wasn't it? And that summed up the whole match for us. We were very, very superior. But you know what? We said last week that we had to aim for 6 points from these two games, Watford and Wolves, but we had to at least get 4 points. Now we've got to beat Wolves because we didn't take advantage of the Watford situation. And while we did terrific, the bottom line is we didn't score. And, you know, there was displays that were a little bit better. Plus side, I thought Sean Longstaff looked more like his old self in the extra midfield, moving Hayden from the back into midfield to sit, allowed Sean to get forward that much more, which I think he's better at than the sitting midfielder when he can attack the box. And Emin Willock did that, and I thought Sean looked so much better than he was pretty close to what he was before his injury in that one game. But we still didn't have enough about us. And we are relying now that we've got Wilson out. We look to San Maximum not only to score, to be the number one man trying to score, but also to be the number one man on assists, which is a heck of a weight for the guy to carry. He's supposed to be the main goal hope and the main assist hope. It's an awful lot. I know he likes the limelight and he likes to be centre stage on the mic and not in the cause, but it's a lot. You can take hope from Watford, or you can look at it the exact opposite way and say, if we dictate the match so much and have 20 shots on goal, not all on target, but 20 shots and score one, and we still don't win, when the heck are we going to win?
Yeah, that's the big problem. It's a big question, Malcolm. When are we going to win? And we've got another chance this weekend. I mean, Wolves got to win, albeit by the skin of their teeth last weekend, but Newcastle have got an opportunity to go away from home and get something again.
Yeah, absolutely. That I was interested in hearing what John had to say. Now, when it comes to missing, if you're scoring goals as an individual, you have to miss because you can't score every chance. And so if you're getting 3 chances and you're scoring 1 out of every 3, that's fine, absolutely fine. But it's when you're not even getting a shot in that the miss is happening. You know, Murphy's effort at the end was a prime example. Even if it had gone over the keeper, right, it wouldn't have had the pace to have reached the goal line before a defender had got back there and cleared it away. So, for heaven's sake, when the keeper had come out all the way to the edge of his box, just about, go round him. That's the simple thing to do. Go round him, and you're just slotting it into an empty net then. Don't try and be clever. The keeper's big, and the keeper is making himself, his arms are out. He's making himself a big star, as big as he possibly can make himself. And so you've somehow got to hit that target that's 20 yards away, that's way behind him. Just go round. Then you've got an empty net. And for the life of me, I was watching, and it just seemed so amateurish at times. But I will say again, and I will keep banging this drum, it's people who are not known as goal scorers who are missing. You've got a goal scorer on the bench. For heaven's sake, stick him on. He will score goals, particularly in a circumstance like the Watford game where there were plenty of chances. And you put plenty of chances in front of Dwight Gayle, and he will score a hatful of goals for you. And so, is there something personal going on? Does Steve Bruce?
He did get on, guys, didn't he? He got on for Willock at the end.
Yeah, but he's not getting a regular game. And when your first choice forward is out,
what I'm saying is that Newcastle started without a forward.
Oh yeah, that's a different thing, Stan. He got on for the first time, but it was far too late. And you're not going to come into the game. When you've got Wilson out, how he doesn't get a start in the Premier League is quite staggering. But what I would say, Steve, and you're right, trying to get a little bit of optimism into the situation. This is another genuine chance this weekend, Wolves, because I don't know. I think you probably saw the match, Malcolm, when the Wolves won at Southampton.
Yeah,
it was a dire game. It was a poor game between two poor sides, lit up by an exceptional goal by the one player they've got that's got a good nous about them in Raul Jimenez. But Wolverhampton, we should not get too worried about them or let us have an excuse before we actually kick off. They may have won 2 this season, but they're both away from home. At Molyneux, they've played 3, lost 3, and not scored a single goal. So that is in their head for all the one at Southampton when they play at home. Oh, crikey, we've played 3, lost 3 in front of our own fans and we haven't even scored a goal. So Newcastle have another chance there. But boy, this time they've got to make it count. There's no ifs or buts. A draw's not good enough with the matches that are to come after the international break. They have got to win this one now. They've heaped more pressure on themselves by not finishing the job off at Watford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a quick message from Keith Moore. It's his sister Jean's 70th birthday today. Happy birthday, Jean, from me.
Happy birthday indeed, Jean. Hope you have a lovely, lovely time.
Hope you're enjoying it, Jean. Happy birthday to you.
Blue Moon Boy makes an interesting point. He says, do you think that Dwight Gayle could have been the mole, Malcolm? We, of course, had a lot of stories still coming out of St James's Park on a regular basis. Bust up on the training ground, players not getting on with the manager. Steve Bruce this, Steve Bruce that. Do you think there's a possibility that there may have been a bit of suspicion cast his way?
Quite possible, Steve. I think it's quite clear that Steve Bruce does not like Dwight Gayle for whatever reason. I don't know what that reason is, or maybe there's more than one reason. But professionally, you don't pick just the players you like.
Yeah.
You pick the best 11 to go out and win a game. And you are more likely going to win a game with somebody who regularly scores goals than playing a side that hasn't even got a forward in it. I I looked at the team from the very beginning and I just went, oh no, ridiculous. And the whole 90 minutes just proved that comment absolutely spot on. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy. Okay, let's move on. Ben Smith has got a question in. He says, evening, thoughts on the Premier League threatening to kick Newcastle United out of the Premier League because of the takeover saga, whilst the top six only got fined smarties for trying to send the English football pyramid to pot. Great point, Ben.
Yeah, very good.
Part of the hearing yesterday, of course, that was one of the things that was mentioned. They actually threatened to kick Newcastle out of the league, Gibbo. Can you believe it? Did you watch any of it?
On what grounds?
It's quite, well, if they went ahead with the situation the way it is, etc. I mean, that is a point I've already made. The point that this gentleman, Ben Smith, is making. It's outrageous on the face of it for Newcastle to be lectured and told they could get expelled if they continued to be naughty boys, when the slimy six who would try to get out of the Premier League and form their own European league only got their knuckles wrapped for doing that. Yet Newcastle's crime almost warranted being expelled from the Premier League is just outrageous. On the surface, was it bluster to try to a game of cards, a bluster to try to get Newcastle to simmer down a little bit? Who knows? But to even mention it as a possibility is all outrageous. But one of the things,
it's worse than that. Okay, I wasn't aware of this, and I am absolutely staggered to be hearing.
They did. It was brought up during yesterday's hearing that Newcastle United, there was no comment on it from the Premier League, but Newcastle United was supposedly threatened about being thrown out of the Premier League, which is absolutely incredible.
And yet that big six.
That's exactly the point. Yes, exactly.
The big six
actually come out
and literally look to destroy the structure that is in place and has been in place for a long time by going off and playing in a league that has no promotion, no relegation. It's a self-built, self-made island, all on its own, nobody in, nobody out. And where's the competition to that? It's going against the whole ethos of league football.
Yeah. But I mean, forgetting that league because that's gone and it isn't going to happen, and coming back to the Newcastle United situation, one of the things, Steve, in all this that bothers me, and I wonder whether it bothers you, is that when you look at what happened yesterday, you see that the Premier League have got their angle, and we all know what that's been, and the six has got a murky hand behind the scenes. The Premier League have got an angle. We know what Ashley's angle is. It might please us that Ashley is doing what he's doing, but he is doing it to get the 300 million in his pocket.
Yeah,
he is doing it because he wants the money. The Premier League are doing it because of the suspicions we have with the six, etc., and that they don't want Newcastle necessarily to be the force that those six are by becoming a seven if they've got a huge money guy. But in the meantime, who is caring about Newcastle United Football Club? The Premier League aren't. Ashley isn't. He's doing it for the cash. Who is caring about what is happening to NUFC during all this? They are the sufferers, and through them, the fans are the sufferers because the fans have been deprived of any hope. The basis of being a football fan is that you have hope. You have hope that your side can win promotion, win a trophy, do something. It's just a hope. It's not an expectation all the time in every club. But you've got to have hope. Newcastle fans have been robbed of that hope. The club is stagnating on and off the field while all this goes on with the Premier League and with Ashley. And my worry is how long, yes, we're in sight of the end one way or another now, but the club is getting so far run down by supposing for 1 minute this doesn't take place, this takeover. And we've got to start again with Ashley looking at the alternatives that he's got supposedly up his sleeve. By the time things are sorted, this club can be hurtling downhill at a rapid rate of knots, where putting the brake on takes some doing, lads. And I don't know that anybody is much concerned about the fate of Newcastle United and the fate of the fans right at this moment.
John, I totally agree with you. Whose responsibility is it to look after the interests of Newcastle United? Is it not the Premier League, who should be equally representing all 20 members of that league? And they're not representing Newcastle. What they're doing is they're actually threatening them in an effort to get them to climb down. And yet 95% of those 20 Premier League clubs have experienced a takeover. Yeah, Why cannot Newcastle?
But the one thing, both these people who are warring, Malcolm, which is the Premier League against Ashley, it's both their responsibilities in a different way to look after Newcastle United. But at the moment, I don't think anybody is looking after
But it seems that the Premier League have just absolved themselves of any responsibility towards one of their members.
Well, of course, they're hiding behind the fact that they don't think this takeover is beneficial because the Saudi state are supposed to would be running Newcastle and not the PIF. And of course, that it doesn't matter how much we waffle, guys, or anybody else waffles. The difficulty I've got in seeing this getting through, and it is not whether I think it ought to be let through or not, the difficulty I've got in seeing this going through eventually is the fact that to the Premier League, the takeover people and Ashley have got to supposedly prove that the Saudi state are separate from the PIF and they're not the same entity. And that is going to be difficult when the Crown Prince is chairman of the PIF. So we're going to have a heck of a job at proving that the Saudi state is separate from the takeover in the eyes of the neutral to get this through. There is a difficulty there that is genuinely going to make this some task.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a task. Lots of people asking me lots of questions about it. Your best bet is tune in tomorrow night for Keith. Keith, of course, was on with me last night for the special cat case show that we did. We had a special guest on as well, Irina, who's a lawyer based in the US. And she was fantastic. So find that on the playlist. The cat case show was a special. Keith goes and gives a full indication of what the situation was. But Keith will be joining us, of course, tomorrow night as well on the Fab Four. If there's any updates, I'm sure he'll give you. Harry Cox asks, what is this that I've heard about Qatar being involved in trolling Newcastle supporters on social media platforms? Yeah, that was what Irina said last night, which was fascinating. She, of course, is based in the US. She's a lawyer. She deals in Middle Eastern politics as well, a bit of an expert on that. But this isn't the first time, apparently, that this kind of situation has happened where Qatar has attacked people supporting Saudi on social media. And that would probably give a big reason as to why the likes of me, Keith Patterson and others, Steve Hasty and as well, have all been attacked for being pro-Saudi. Kate Stewart as well on Twitter has been attacked quite viciously, either taken, pot shots taken at her by fake accounts or attacks on the actual security of the account where someone is trying to get into it. So, we can't point fingers at anybody directly. We can't even point fingers at the country, but it's Irina's opinion. It's her opinion. It would make sense, put it that way. John, again, just pointing you towards tomorrow night's show. What happens if we lose arbitration but we win the cat case? We'll ask the questions to Keith tomorrow. If you don't mind, it's I'm not saying it's out of my jurisdiction because all I can give is an opinion. Keith, though, is more trained in that area. He knows what he's talking about. So join us tomorrow night between 5:30 and 7:30. I'm sure Keith will give you an answer. And I have got good news for people who enjoy watching the Fab Four. Tomorrow night is return of the Hasty. Steve Hasty is back after his couple of weeks out. And he's had a little bit of an illness. And I'm pleased to say that he's now back on his feet and fighting for the cause, if you like. So return of the Hasty. Steve Hasty will be back tomorrow night, and I know that will please a lot of our regular viewers. Next question. Graham Scott will referee the game at Molineux this weekend. Says, Tom, thank you for that. Ian says the players should be 100% focused on doing what they get paid for. Off the field, goings on shouldn't be used to excuse any lack of effort or focus. No excuses. John, you're nodding your head there.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, the players have a responsibility. We can slaughter Mike Ashley and totally justify doing it. We can slaughter Steve Bruce and his coaches and results justify doing that. But players mustn't hide. And to be truthful, I don't see any of the players, and Malcolm would know this from his days of being in the dressing room as both a player and a manager. I don't see any of the players spending 7 hours yesterday mulling over the cat meeting and following everything on. It's way above their head. They would only be interested in the takeover when the takeover actually happens, and whether that means Newcastle can afford a lot better players and all them will be on the dole next week or next season. That is the only thing that will bother players. The rest of it, forget about. The rest of it has got to boil down in whether or not you like your manager or your coach or whoever, as we've talked about, people like, does Dwight Gayle like Steve Bruce? Does Sean Longstaff like Steve Bruce? Did Matty Longstaff? Did Matt Ritchie? Did Manquillo when he wasn't in the team? Forget about that. As play for yourself. If you can't play for the manager and you can't play for the badge, play for yourself, for your own pride. I'm not going to make a mug of myself. I'm going to go out there and do a job. Now, I do suspect in the main, and I think I've got to say this in all fairness, that Newcastle as a team, having wrapped it in this season, they're just not good enough. And they're not necessarily coached well or have the right tactics to win matches. But I haven't seen, as a team, them wrap it in too much, in fairness to them. Because once that comes into this team, we are dead, man. We are relegated. If the team start throwing, the towel in, we are dead. The only hope we've got is that I suspect that as a squad, they've got together in the private moments and said, look, we're all in this together. Whether we like certain things or we don't, we've got to try to keep ourselves afloat. And at the moment, you're getting that. But are we going down the right road? Are we going down the right road tactically? Have we got enough ability in the side? We're coming back to the old argument that we've had, guys, for so long. Is this a bunch of players that's better than the results are, but they're not being put together tactically well? Or are they not good enough come what may, and we're paying a price for not buying people during the summer? I suspect it's a bit of both.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of both, John.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, interesting there from Stuart Campbell, just seen on Twitter. BBC Panorama team are now wanting to investigate the Premier League. Wow, can of worms, he says. It most certainly is. That will be an interesting programme, which I think will be watched.
Joe, wouldn't it?
Yeah, do you think they'll be calling Mike Ashley as a witness?
Possibly, yeah. Wow, that could be interesting. Over 16,000 people watched the tribunal yesterday for 7 hours. Unbelievable, that, on the internet. Shows you the interest. And that was one thing the judge said at the end. It shows that this was definitely of public interest. So that was definitely a win for Newcastle, I felt, yesterday. Big shout out to our sponsor, Spider VPN. If you've got a problem with your internet, click the link in the chat. It is there. Just give it a click, have a look. See what you think, and they can help you protect your computer, protect your passwords. And in this day of cyber fraud, it is very important to do that. So please click on Spider VPN today. Skipsandbins.com as well. Big shout out to the lads. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contact free, and pay as you go waste collection. L&G Family Funeral Directors are with us still this month. 0191 389 7245. And qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle, and Jab Signature, who make all of our flyers. Big thank you to all of our sponsors. If you're a first-time visitor to the show, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and that is it. You have subscribed for free. We still do 7 shows a week, and a little bit extra content as well. Hit the thumb up below the video to like it, which does us a big favour. Click share to your social media. Maybe it's a Facebook group for Newcastle fans. Try and build up our platform. Over 42,100 people now subscribe to the channel, which is a hell of a lot of people. We're edging close to the 50,000 mark. It would be nice to hit that in the next couple of months. Drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast for free again on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. Lots of events coming up over the next few months before Christmas. An evening with Gavin Peacock and John Gibson, 29th of October at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that are £15. Gavin will be bringing his book to sign on the night. Get yourself along to that one. Then the very 2 men in front of you, Supermac and Gibbo, are giving up their time for the food bank at our belated NUFC Matters Christmas party at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 19th of November. And tickets for that are £12, with all proceeds going to the food bank. And last, but by no means least, an evening with Peter Beardsley, and that takes place on the 26th of November at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that is, again, a Friday night. All tickets for all events are available at www.newcastlelegends.com, and click shop, and you can buy your tickets online today. There are a couple of events which are not anything to do with Newcastle Legends per se. An evening with Rob Lee, and that is on the 29th of October, the night after the Gavin Peacock one, and that is at Whitley Bay, www.laurelwhitley.co.uk for tickets for the evening with Rob Lee. And we are back at Bobix in Jesmond, and again, another food bank event. The 9th of December, I'll be on stage with Malcolm. We will be talking Newcastle United, of course, and raising more money for the food bank. So that's Thursday, the 9th of December, if you want to come along and see me and Malcolm. Don't forget as well, on match day, you can, all year round actually, NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk, you can make a donation to the match day bucket. You've still got time to enter into the raffle for the Newcastle Supporters Consortium watch. That will be drawn, of course, when we get the pool night underway. And also the other raffle we've got going for the food bank is to win a pair of Peter Beardsley trainers. And the raffle is at NUFC Fans Food Bank. The winner is drawn at the Beardsley Do. You can buy your tickets, which are £1 each, to enter into the draw for that. And the website is nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. And once again, I make no apologies for plugging the Peter Beardsley Soccer School, which was launched a couple of days ago, Monday the 25th to Friday the 29th of October 2021, and it'll be 10 a.m. till 4 p.m, £15 per day or £60 for the full week, and that is all coaches, of course, are qualified and DBS checked. Please email pbsoccerschools@hotmail.com for more details. That is pbsoccerschool@hotmail.com for details. That will honestly be great. Any kid who can't learn anything off Peter Beardsley, honestly, get yourself along to that. That will be absolutely fantastic. So good luck, Peter. I know you like to watch the show, and best of luck with that.
Could we, Steve? Sorry to put in, mate.
No, that's it. No, go for it. I've finished.
Could we just get Jacob Murphy to go along to that school and Peter can teach him how to chip a goalkeeper? Because Peter was the best at dinking the goalkeeper. So if we can get Murphy up there, he might make a better hash of it the next time.
Yeah, good stuff. Stuart Hines says, better late than never. 2 nights in a row I've been able to watch live. Great stuff, Stuart. Question, gents. I've said for months, could J7 become a better player under a better attacking mindset manager than Steve Bruce? J7, of course. It's NUFC Matters' new name for Joelinton. New name, new ambition, new chance of becoming a player. Malcolm, you've folded your arms and you've sat back. That doesn't look good.
No, it isn't good because no, you can't turn a sow's ear into a silk purse. You just can't do it. Let me just reiterate something that I said a few weeks ago with regards to, in between the 2 lockdowns, there was a game that I was sat with John at St James Park watching the game, and I had my suspicions about Joelinton. And so over the 90 minutes, I just kept a count of every time the ball went to Joelinton. Did he maintain possession or did he lose it? He lost it 2 out of every 3 times he got the ball. That is frightening. A player with North Shields, of who I'm president, if there was a player in the team who was losing the ball that regularly, he wouldn't just be out the first team, he'd be out the club. And I don't think that the guy fully realizes what it needs, what it demands to be a successful professional footballer. For a start, you need to play in a position. Tell me what position Joelinton plays in. Here he is, he's 23 years of age, and he still hasn't found where he can play on a football field. And the fella's still searching. And it's getting to the stage where I think he's just beginning, he's beginning to fully accept that less than average will do. Because that's what I'm producing, but Steve Bruce keeps picking me. Now, there is the conundrum. Why is Steve Bruce still picking him all of the time when he's letting the side down all of the while? He's not doing it purposely. The fact is, he just isn't good enough.
Yeah, John, I mean, look, we're not mocking Joelinton here, by the way. It's a reference. Somebody referred to him as J7, and we thought, look, you know, it's we always look for an angle, you know, for a bit of merchandise, and it's a good one. I had the jury out on him last year. He's never going to be a top class player. We know that, but this is where Newcastle United are now. And whereas probably when he first signed, I felt it was a waste of a shirt. I do feel at times he tries his best now, and he's certainly not a centre forward. He hasn't got the pressure of the number 9 shirt anymore, and at times he does okay. He's come up with a couple of assists, but you know, if you take away the price tag, he's just another poor forward that Newcastle have signed. We've had plenty of them in our history.
I know where you're coming from, Steve, and you know, just because you don't want to end up looking as if you're persecuting somebody for the sake of persecuting them, and you can look that way with Joelinton very easily, because he is not a number 9, he is not a goal scorer, and he's not a record buy for any Premier League club. It is not his fault, let's establish this to start with, that Newcastle decided he was worth 40 million, decided he was a centre forward, and decided that it at this club of all clubs, where we have a legendary number 9s, and the whole history of the club is about those people, that he's a centre forward and they should give him the number 9 shirt and pay a record fee for him. That was absolutely ludicrous because, for a start, two things are wrong there. First of all, he has never been a goal scorer in the whole of his career. If you look at his stats, he's never gotten double figures in a league season wherever country he's been playing in. And he's not a centre forward. The best performances he had in Germany were left side of a 3. So why we spent 40 million, thought he could score goals and give him the number 9 shirt is beyond me. It is totally and utterly incredible. By his very low standards that he's set at Newcastle, and it'll take some recovering from being the number 9 that plays through the middle at Newcastle and has a goal scoring record of 1 goal every 15 games. It takes some recovering from that. But having said that, with the bar set at such a low standard as it is with Joelinton, you can say he's looked a little better playing out wide and he's contributed more. The trouble is that in today's game, where you play with a front 3, all 3 have got to have a capability of scoring. Your centre forward's is the number 1 act, but the other 2 must weigh in as well. And you know that Joelinton is not going to do that. He is not going to score any number of goals anytime soon. So that's a problem. But the bar has been so low with Big Joe since he come here that you can say there's an improvement. As small as it is, etc., etc. I mean, I saw a stat somewhere, Steve, and you must have saw it. That was down at, was it a Sky stat? They'd come up with a stat that down at Watford, he won more headers in that particular game than any other Premier League striker that day.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that for me is staggering, and that for me is what is wrong with stats. Because if you jump above somebody and you knock the ball on, but it's not going anywhere, and it's not, you could not compare Joelinton in the air with Andy Carroll in his pump, with Alan Shearer, who could score goals upstairs for fun, with a fella sitting in the middle of us 3 tonight who, despite not being 6 foot, could score goals in the air. You can't compare Joelinton. And by the way, Joelinton's bigger than any of those guys. Should get a fair share in the air and doesn't. That stat was quite ludicrous. But I don't want to become a bloke who's persecuting Joelinton in the paper or on this show or on any other podcast all the time, because it's not an obsession, you know. It's my despair that makes me say this guy ain't good enough and why. But you know what I'm concerned more about, guys? I'm concerned more about why Newcastle bought him, why they spent a club record fee, and why they give him a number 9 shirt and played him through the middle. None of which is his fault. But
sure. And one more question to add to that, John. And why does Steve Bruce keep picking him when he's offering so little?
Oh, I mean, if that, there's no question. But I mean, you can go on. Why he doesn't pick Dwight Gayle at the same time? Why he went through a period where he didn't pick Sean Longstaff? Why he went through a period where he didn't pick Manquillo? Why he went through a period when he fell out with Matt Ritchie? Why he went through a period where Matty Longstaff has ended up at Aberdeen? There's been a load of situations where players have fallen out with the manager, or the manager has fallen out with them. And it may be that Steve Bruce and his coaches look at it and think these guys aren't good enough. But if they think these guys aren't good enough, they also think that Joelinton is good enough and that Shelby, when he's fit, is good enough. So you look at judgment and you think, wait a minute, is it not personal? Is it just the judgment is so bad that you can rate Joelinton and Shelby while you don't rate Gayle and Sean Longstaff and Manquillo and Richie? It is quite confusing, believe you me. It is quite confusing, and I think everybody.
And just listening to you, John, going through that sort of list of yours, why is Steve Bruce falling out with so many players? You know, it's almost as if he's going out looking to pick fights with people.
Trying to lose his job, perhaps, John?
Well, here we come out. You're a naughty little person, you, Mr. Wraith. We come round to that one quite often. Let's turn that on its head and say, is he trying to lose his job? But let's turn it on the head. If he keeps doing this, he will lose his job. And certainly if the owner wasn't an owner with a total disregard for Newcastle United and what's happening up there, he would have lost it after Brighton last season. This owner doesn't care about Newcastle United. He never cared too much, but he cares not at all now. So, he's not going to bother himself and have to look to appoint a new manager or promote Jones and appoint some new coaches. He can't be asked. Why should he bother with doing that at a club he couldn't care less about? Just let it carry on. It's early in the season. It'll all work itself out, and we'll stay up by a fluke, by good luck, by
skin of our teeth.
Having 3 Norwich cities. Maybe we'll stay up by having 3 Norwich cities. But, you know, I tell you what, let's forget the league table at the moment, where Watford had 2 wins and were 11th when they played us. Watford will be lucky to escape relegation this season.
Yeah, I agree.
And we couldn't beat them. And I tell you what, Wolves are in trouble, guys.
Yeah,
so let's see what we do against them.
Let's see what happens. It's International Week coming up, of course, after this weekend, and that's when the trigger's usually pulled on a few managers. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I still expect Steve Bruce to be in a job, to be perfectly honest. Gareth from Spider VPN, one of our sponsors, good evening. He says, have you heard anything at all from the buying party since yesterday's court day? Yeah, I spoke to the potential buyers. I mentioned it on the show last night. And no change, really. They are sitting waiting for the outcome. There's nothing they can do. It's down to Mike Ashley's arbitration and the cat, and they can only sit and wait and hope that, you know, something positive comes from all of this legal action. But it is very much a waiting game from those concerned on the buy-in side. So it is as simple as that. Alan says, why do the local press never ask these questions at the press conference? Keep Steve Bruce in a job. And I guess, John, it's a bit unfair on the press because at the moment we are still doing everything by Zoom.
I mean, yes, that. And do you think Newcastle United want that to change? No, I don't think they do, because you get one question, or possibly 2 questions, and you move on to somebody else. So it is much easier to control the situation with Zoom. But it almost makes me smile, you know, when we talk the local press, and for years it's always been the same. Let's blame the local press. There's fans think the local press are too soft on Newcastle United, and then there's Steve Bruce blaming the local press for the situation Newcastle's in because they're far too negative. So we can't have it both ways. But it is difficult as well. And I think one of the difficulty is because I'm never in a press conference. I'm never in St. James's Park press box these days because I'm persona non grata, whether it's because I'm too ugly or because I might ask the wrong questions, I'm not certain, but not too welcome at headquarters. But I was at headquarters before this lot, and I'll be at headquarters after this lot's gone, so I'm not too fussed about all that. But it is a problem because the local press that are in there asking questions have a very fine line to walk, because they've got to be responsible to fans because they are our readers and they're the people that matter. But they don't want to ruffle feathers too much with the manager because then they get no stories. So do they stick or do they twist? In truth, that's the problem of every individual to solve for yourself. And how far you can have the guts to go down a particular road or feel that it's not necessary, that's a different matter. There's a lot of support in the press, as we know, for Steve because he's got a lot of friends in the press, and sometimes that gets in the way of facts. But the bottom line is, you've just got to look at Newcastle's results to know that there's an awful lot wrong at that club. And the manager cannot be getting it right too often if Newcastle are in the situation they're in. I mean, that is an indisputable fact, which is got to be accepted by the owner, by the manager, and by the dressing room. That is a fact that cannot be up for dispute. We can't be getting things right too often, can we, to have the results we've got? And let us bear in mind, outside of Manchester United and possibly West Ham, we've had a gentle introduction on the Premier League and a very gentle introduction to the domestic cups with Burnley at home, and we still haven't won a single game. Whose fault is that, guys? Is it the Evening Chronicle, or could it possibly be in-house?
It's the fault of all the journalists who have been barred, John.
You're right, mate. I know that, but I'm trying to argue a corner. I know it's my fault and your fault, Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, and Craig Hope.
Crazy, isn't it, Malcolm, though, that this is where we're at now with the football club? It really is.
Oh, I really can't believe what actually goes on. And it's just not happening in a professional manner. And I look back at the various football clubs that I've been at, and I've never witnessed anything so sloppy as how things are being handled at Newcastle United right now. It to me, it just seems to be quite a shambles, and you've got people who are in charge of bringing players in and selling players and what have you, and they're not communicating with Steve Bruce. Or if they are, why did they give a 3-year contract to Dwight Gayle?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Dwight Gayle has got a 3-year contract, which is costing a lot of money, and he's not going to be played because the manager doesn't like him. What the hell is going on? I've never witnessed anything quite like this, I think, ever in football before at any club. Oh, I know that there's, silly things have gone on at places like Oldham and what have you, but heavens above, this is a Premiership club, and I just think it's being run like Fred Carno's circus at times.
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, let's look ahead to the weekend's game. Of course, Newcastle United are in Premier League action once again, and away from home once again. It is Wolves away. It's a good old-fashioned 3:00 kickoff at Molineux, and all the away section tickets have sold out, including mine. I've got one, so I will be off to Molineux this weekend, and I am looking forward to it. This is the 7th time that these two teams have met on this ground in the Premier League, and Newcastle are unbeaten in the previous 6, winning once and registering 1-1 draws in the other 5. So it's a happy hunting ground. You've got to go back, actually, to November 77 to find the last time that we lost at Molineux in the top division, which was a 1-0 defeat. Of course, that was a relegation season, if I recall correctly. Martin Dubravka, John Joe Shelby, Paul Dummett, Freddie Woodman, Callum Wilson, Jamal Lascelles, who all missed the draw at Watford last week due to injury and fitness issues. and none of them are expected to return for this game. But never put anything past Steve Bruce. He had us all fooled on Willock last week, so you never know. But Wilson has been back in light training, and I think the optimistic fan would see him back for the 17th of October. Maybe it's not a good idea to rush the man who is going to score the significant amount of goals for us this season. Of course, that is a big blow, but probably better being safe than sorry. As for Wolves, Pedro, Neto, Johnny and Mosquera are all on the injured list. Bruno Lage, of course, is now the manager there. And as I mentioned earlier in the programme, his side recorded their first win last week against Southampton. And yes, interesting game this. The referee, as Tom Dixon mentioned earlier on, Graham Scott, has been appointed. VAR is Andrea Mariner. And it's not on TV, so you'll have to tune in to BBC Radio Newcastle or NUFC TV for this one. Okay, Mal, how do you see this going?
Well, it all depends on whether he's prepared to play Dwight Gayle, I think, because Wilson isn't going to be fit, and are you going to play with somebody who can score you goals, or are you not? And if you're not, then the team is going to struggle in search of sticking the ball in the net. Just going back to the Watford game, if Newcastle had just taken 1 or 2 or 3 of those chances that they missed, then all of a sudden they're 2-3-0 up, and they can cruise in the game then. You know, that they can just knock it about, take the whole pressure off the situation, and just have the opposition chasing and running. But the way Newcastle are playing now, they never put the game beyond the reach of the opposition. The opposition have always got a chance. And so Newcastle, they just don't get that opportunity just to relax on the ball and go and play some relaxed football. And the one thing is that if you stick the ball in the net, all of a sudden, you give yourself that big boost. You stick it in the net again. Wow! Now you relax and you start to play. When was the last time that Newcastle United players experienced that luxury? I can't remember. And you'd be amazed at the good, the real good that it can do when you're able to play in that relaxed atmosphere. But Newcastle, it's all tension, because they never get to that point where they can just relax and play the game at the very best of their ability. It's always a fight and a scrap. And I think it'll be a fight and a scrap again. If Steve Bruce is prepared to play Dwight Gayle, get the ball into him, for heaven's sake, from both flanks. Murphy can do that. Richie can do that. So if you're going to play Gayle, play those those wide guys in a fairly advanced role, and then you might get somewhere. If you don't play Gayle, what are you going to do? Play Joelinton there again? For what? He offers nothing at all. Very little. And so it falls then on St. Maximin, where he's saying to himself, I've got to go on these mazy runs. I've got to go and beat four people and try and get me shot on goal. And in the end, he just keeps running into trouble. He's not allowed to relax on the ball and let his game flow. All the time, he's having to chase it. And Wolves, they're not a good side. But over the past years, at times, they've given Newcastle a right footballing lesson. And it's about time that Newcastle took the game by the scruff of the neck against Wolves and went and played some stuff. But if they're going to play some stuff, they need somebody to be able to finish it all off up front. And so if Dwight Gayle plays, I can see Newcastle getting a result. If Dwight Gayle doesn't play, Newcastle will seriously struggle, and the best they'll get, I think, is a draw. The very best they'll get.
Okay, John, over to you.
Yeah, well, basically, I look at it, it's a game between those that can't and those that don't, because Newcastle have let in 14 goals in 6 games, never kept a clean sheet in the Premier League this season. The other side of the coin, that's a disastrous record of defending. The other side of the coin, Wolves have only scored 3 times all season, never at home. Only Norwich have scored less than Wolves in this season in the Premier League. So the simple answer to that is whoever bucks the trend wins. If Newcastle United keep a clean sheet, or if Wolves start scoring, whoever bucks the trend wins. But I tell you what I think. I don't think either will buck the trend. Dwight Gayle won't start. Newcastle won't score a bomb. It will be the result it always is. It'll be a 1-1 draw. And by the way, that Steve Bruce will tell us that's a good result because it's away from home. Good old us. And we'll go into the international break having played 9 times, including the cup, and not having won once. We need to win this game, not draw 1-1. It's damn sight better than losing, but it's not good enough. And I think that's what will happen. We'll draw. Our forecast, as you know, Steve, I forecast 1-1 last week when we went win, lose, and draw between the 3 of us. It's always 1-1 with Wolves as it happens, but that's not why I'm saying it. That's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because we won't start with a goal scorer. Wolves aren't good. By the way, if it's a 1-1, that's the first time they've scored at home this season. But I'm going, it'll be a 1-1. And what I like to do, and you know this, Steve, and you know what's coming, you tell me, mate, what your forecast is.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I went for a 1-0 win last week. I wasn't far off. I've got to be honest, guys. I agree with you. I can only see a point at Wolves. Do I think that's a good point? Probably after Wolves won last weekend. And yeah, I think it'll be enough to keep Steve Bruce in a job. But I agree. I don't think Dwight Gayle will play. I think that we will go for pretty much the same team as we went with last week. And ultimately, we'll just settle for a draw. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the international break. Will there be a decision made? We've heard lots of rumours, lots of talk about Steve Bruce potentially losing his job. It's a big break for Newcastle. But as always, the clock has beaten us, gents. Great to have you on, as always. I'm going to be back in about 15 minutes with a true crime interview with Ben Hatchett, another podcaster who I know quite well. We're going to have a chat at about 7:15, so I'm going to have a quick tea break and then be back on. But guys, see you next Thursday. Take care.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All the best.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again.